Hello everyone. In this video we will discuss about language and style. Our group consists of Ahmad Alwi Hutama, Galuh Mulia Wahana, and Sarah Andriyani. In this video, we will discuss about style and stylistics, the same bright patient stars, ways with words, twisting words, gluing it all together, saying it but softly, searching for the skeleton, poems, news, the language of advertising. Literary language is not a bizarre confection of angel dust. Instead, it overlaps strongly with various other types of language, including everyday language. Nowadays, language is flexible and fuzzy-edge. The first topic is style and stylistic. The linguistic analysis of literary language is known as stylistics. The word styles was one applied to different varieties of language, such as the language of religion or of legal documents. But these varieties are now often known as registers. The word style and stylistic have acquired to somewhat specialized, narrow usage of linguistic applied to literature. In literary language, certain features are foreground or highlighted, brought forward for special attention. The next topic is the same bright patient stars. In literary language, the phonology, morphology, and mostly the syntax are the same bright patient stars. They may sometimes deviate from the norm, but do so relatively little. Inflection morphemes are meaningful chunks of word which alter the relation of a word to the rest of the sentence are rarely altered. Syntax may deviate from the morphology, though any deviation is likely to be minor. The example of inflectional morphemes is "Tell me, O octopus, I begs, is those things arms, or is they legs?" by Ogden Nash. And the example of syntax is "About the woodlands I will go, to see the cherry hung with snow" by A. E. Houseman.
The third is ways with words. Words are the whole of which literature is knit, yet are mainly existing ones, usually used in the novel ways. Writers are like knitters trying to invent new patterns. They avoid obvious sequences such as black disappear, green fingers, or purple patch. This example contains so-called tropes, an old technical term for rhetoric for figure of speech, which involve meaning. These are traditionally connected with poetic meaning. Now, let's jump into the next topic, twisting words. Trope literally means turning, twisting, turning word or phrase to make it mean something else. A turn word to metaphor, simile, personification, metonymy, and synecdoche. Metaphor says straight up that one thing is another. For the example, love is a flame. This metaphor deeply connecting one to the other. In the other hand, similes compare one thing to another using the word like or as. For the example, fame is like a river. Some metaphor and similes are used so frequently they are sometimes categorized as cliches. There are some example metaphor and similes in daily conversation. She is an old flame, sharp as a tack. Time is money, black mood. Next, let's move to gluing it all together. This is the poetry from Lord Alfred Tennyson. The moan of doves in the memorial elms, the murmuring of innumerable bees, from Lord Alfred Tennyson. These lines of Tennyson are often quoted as an instance of poetic writing. They attempt to reproduce the sound of doves cawing and a bee's humming. Technically, we call it onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is a words that imitate sounds. For example, the sound of doves cawing and a bee's humming. In this case, mainly of the sounds M and R. For the example, immemorial, murmuring, and innumerable. Next, repetition. Repetition means to repeat word, phrase, or line. Repetition is a glue which helps a work of literature to hang together as a whole or cohere. Of course, in real-life conversation is enormously repetitious. As football, football, everybody keeps talking about football. This is the poetry from William Blake, Tiger, Tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. Rhyme and meter are used in here. Rhyme and meter are types of repetition strongly associated with poetry. In the rhyme, the ends of words are repeated. For the example, in this poetry, bright and night. Poetic meters differ from spoken speech rhythms primarily in that they are more repetitious and more consistent, even though an intentional sudden breaking of the metrical patterns can create a special effect.
Saying it again, but subtly. They shoot the road to the woods. 70 years ago, weather and rain have undone it again. And now you would never know. There was once a path to the woods before they planted the trees. By Rudyard Kipling. This line seems straightforward, yet closely connected words help to link them together. As road and paths, trees and woods, rain and weather. And example number 2. By the shores of Gami, by the shining big sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis, daughter of the moon Nokomis, by Henry W. Longfellow. These lines from Hiawatha contain obvious repetition, yet much of literature hangs together via less obvious repetitious devices. Searching for the skeleton. Poems, news. Words are like the flesh on an underlying skeleton. The bones vary in their rigidity. Some verse is tightly formed, sonnets have a 14-line structure, and limericks a 5-line one. As there was an old man of the coast, who placidly sat on a post, but when it was cold, he relinquished his hold, and called for some hot buttered toast. Other written forms have a less obvious structure. Take newspaper reports. It is fashionable to moan about journalists. Yet this is unwarranted. The vocabulary and style are straightforward. Trainee journalists are advised to follow the rules of clear writing proposed by the writer George Orwell, which include never use a long word where a short one will do. If it is possible to cut out a word, always cut it out. Never use a passive where you can use an active. Hard news formula. What is complex is the structure underlying the news stories. New information is placed first within a what, where, when, who, how, why summary, a so-called hard news formula whose purpose is to orient the reader fast as to what happened, where it happened, who was involved, how it occurred, and why it happened, to when is often missing, because news is assumed to be new and recent, and why is not always known. For example, at least 26 people were killed and more than 200 injured when a huge car bomb ripped through the center of Omak, country Tehran, yesterday afternoon. A huge amount of important information is tightly packed into that first sentence, which provides a concise account of the whole event, a summary that only skilled journalists can easily write, and the headline is commonly written from that summary. Language of advertising. The language of advertising. Advertising copywriters, like journalists, have to present their message briefly and in an eye-catching way. Advertisement 1. Mass. The missing link between animal and man. Earthy, primitive, firstly masculine. Cosmetic advertisement. Advertisement 2. Outspan. The great taste of grapefruit. Cool, refreshing, full of flavor, wholesome. Natural grapefruit, the color of the sun. Puts the rest in the shade. Fruit advertisement. Extended advertisement. In an extended advertisement, the wording often follows a formula. First, the key word, followed by a longer sequence, mass, the missing link between animal and man. Then comes a series of shorties, catchy phrases. Important words are backed up with near synonyms: earthy, primitive; cool, refreshing; wholesome, natural. There's likely to be pun somewhere. The color of the sun puts the rest in the shade. It's easy to think up other examples of plays on words in well-known ads. But not all advertising is so straightforward, less obvious, and some more dangerous are some of the other techniques used by politicians. Richard Nixon, an ex-president of the USA, repeatedly implies how important it was to win in the race against other countries. The example: this nation cannot stand still because we are in a deadly competition. We are ahead in this competition. But when you're in a race, the only way to stay ahead is to move ahead.
That's all of our discussion in this video. Thank you for your attention and have a nice day.